Hello everyone, welcome back to online lecture series on heat transfer. We are continuing our topic of steady state heat conduction. First of all, we will do a quick revision of what we have done in our previous lecture. So here we started with a conduction through a plane wall. In which we started with Cartesian equation and we obtained the temperature profile. Based on that, we calculated the heat flow rate. Then we discussed about conduction through a composite wall, that is combination of more than one walls. The next thing was thermal contact resistance, which happens because of imperfect contact between two walls, in which the void spaces are filled with air. Next, we discussed about heat flow between surface and surrounding, which is governed by Newton-Raphman law, which is given by Q is equal to HA Ts minus Tf. And we also defined overall heat transfer coefficient, which is given by this formula. Then the next topic was conduction through a cylindrical wall, in which we started with general heat conduction equation in cylindrical coordinates. And we obtained the temperature profile in this way. Based on that, we calculated the conduction heat transfer rate with the help of Fourier's law. And we also defined thermal resistance in this case. And we also discussed few other important points like logarithmic mean area and logarithmic mean radius. Now we are beginning our new topic of today. We are continuing the same topic of steady state heat conduction. So our first topic is conduction through a multi-layer cylindrical wall. In our previous lecture, we studied only about a single cylindrical wall. Here we are having multiple layer cylindrical wall. This topic is very similar to the heat conduction through a composite wall. So first of all, we will focus on this figure. Here, consider this is the inner portion of pipe, and there are different layers which are attached to it. So let us say that this is our first layer, that is, I am talking about this portion, this entire circle. So this is our first layer, in which the inner radius is R1, as you can see here, and the outer radius is R2 for our first cylindrical wall. Then after that, we are having this as the second part or second cylindrical wall or pipe, which is shown with this area. I am not drawing for the full circle. You should be able to understand this. So here for the second part, this will be the inner radius and this will be the outer radius. And if you see this figure, the left hand side figure, then the inner radius for this will be R2 and outer radius will be R3. So here this is R2 and this is R3. Okay, and then there is the third and last layer, which is this one, third number, which is shown with this area. And if you see carefully, the inner radius for this pipe is this and outer radius is this. So this will be R3 will be the outer radius, sorry, R3 will be inner radius and R4 will be the outer radius, and the same can be seen from here also, that this is R3, that is inner radius for the third layer, and this will be the R4 radius, which is this. Okay, and here the length of the pipe is shown as L. It is assumed that the flow of heat is only in the radial direction like this. There is no flow in axial direction. And as there are three layers, and we are assuming that fluid is moving inside this inner hollow portion. So here let us say that there is a hot fluid inside this. We can also consider it to be a steam also. So here there will be something like a steam, and here we will have normal environmental air or atmospheric air. So obviously the heat flow will be in from inner to outer side, and for this three layer according to their thermal conductivity and radius value, it will be having the thermal resistance RT1, RT2 and RT3. Okay, so here this is the equivalent thermal circuit which is shown over here, and temperatures are also shown T1, T2, T3, T4. So most the internal temperature is T1, which is highest. Then as we move outer side, it becomes lesser, that is T1 to T4. So this is the explanation of this figure for a multi-layer cylindrical wall. So you should draw this in your notebook right now. So the previous figure shows conduction through a composite wall having three layers of different materials. There is a perfect contact. This is our assumption that there is a perfect contact between the layers, so an equal interface temperature for any two neighboring layer is there. So there is equal interface temperature. If you recall, we were having a thermal contact resistance theory in which this was not equal, but here for simplicity purpose we are assuming that there is a perfect contact and equal interface temperature. Now for steady state conduction, the heat flow rate through each layer is same, and it can be described by following set of equations. So here Q is given by this formula which we have already derived in our previous lecture. And the same equation is applicable for intermediate layer as well as the outer layer. So if you have drawn this previous figure in your notebook, you can easily understand this equation, that for the first inner ring or inner layer, the inner radius was R1, this was R1, and outer was R2. That is applicable to this formula. Then for the intermediate layer, here we are having R3, R2 as the inner layer, inner radius, and R3 as the outer radius. Then for the most outer layer, we are having the inner radius as R3 and outer radius as R4. So this figure is applicable for this, and the last figure is applicable for this. And as you are aware that here the thermal conductivity of three layers are different, K1, K2 and K3. Here there is a mistake, here it will be K3. So let me edit that part. This should be 3. Now the above equations help to determine the temperature difference for each layer of the composite cylinder. So based on, let us say that first we take this equation, and we make T1 minus T2 as subject in this equation, then we will be obtaining this formula. The same process can be done for the second equation as well as the third equation. So we will be getting the temperature difference like this. And now, as we have done in our theory of composite walls, we can sum this all three equations together. So when we add these two equations with the first equation, then T2 will get eliminated and T3 will get eliminated. So we will be left with only T1 minus T4 on left hand side and summation of these three terms on the right hand side. So let's see. So we are getting a formula like this. So here the heat flow rate for a composite wall can be written in this way, that on the numerator we are having the overall temperature difference T1 minus T4, and on the denominator we are having thermal resistance of each layer, and they are summed together. Now here if you see, in this part we were not considering the stagnant layer or the hot fluid layer and cold fluid layer outside. Now we will be considering that here. So now we will focus in this figure. Here instead of having three layers, we have, for simplicity purpose, we have kept only two layers, that is layer 1 and layer 2. Okay, and here we are having this as a hot fluid. hot fluid layer is shown with this. Okay, and on the most outer side we are having a cold layer which is shown with this dotted circle. Like this. So now we will be considering this two layers also. So here we are having, if you see, this will be our cold stagnant layer or cold fluid film in this way here. And here on the inner side this will be our hot stagnant layer, for which convection resistance will be responsible for the heat flow over here. So besides having two default layers, we need to count this hot fluid film as well as cold fluid film. As usual, we are having thermal conductivity K1 and K2 over here, and the temperature differences, the temperature is T1, T2 and T3, and the same thing can be seen here. Here the inside film coefficient is Hi and the outside film coefficient is Ho. These are heat transfer coefficients, and if you recall, for these two layers we need to apply the Newton-Raphman law. So I would suggest you to draw this figure in your notebook so that it will be easy for you to understand the equations in the next slide. Now here if the internal and external heat transfer coefficients for a composite cylinder Hi and Ho respectively, then the total will be like this. So here if you see this portion, this resistance is for hot film, this is for layer 1, this is for layer 2, and this is for cold film. Okay, so this is the way these resistance are divided, and they will all sum together. So here the value of heat flow rate Q is given by the temperature difference delta T divided by the total resistance. Now we will introduce the concept of overall heat transfer coefficient U for this case. So here the value of Q is equal to UA Ti minus To. So if you recall, this is very similar to our Newton-Raphman law. Q is equal to H A Ti minus To. So this was only for convection. However, instead of H, now we are having overall heat transfer coefficient. Since the flow area varies for a cylindrical tube, it becomes necessary to specify the area on which U is based. So there are two different values of U in this way. So if you see, we have defined Q in two different ways. First is based on the inner area, that is U in A in into Ti minus To is equal to U out A out Ti minus To. So first of all, what we are going to do is we are going to focus on this equation. And here we have first written the right hand side here, U in as it is. Instead of A in, we have written 2 pi R1L, that is the inlet area, and the temperature is as it is. So now we are putting this whole equation over here. So now what we are going to do is we are going to take this Ti minus To will already get cancelled out. Ti minus To will get cancelled out here. And here this will be taken here. So by that we will be getting this formula. So once you take this 2 pi R1L in the denominator of right hand side, by few mathematical eliminations, you will be finally obtaining this equation. That is the overall heat transfer coefficient based on the inner area. Now our objective is to find out the overall heat transfer coefficient based on the outer area. So for that, what you can do is you can write down this equation here as U out 2 pi R3 L Ti minus To, and now you will be dealing only with this portion. So once you do that, you will be obtaining U out in this way. Okay, so this is in this way for a composite cylindrical wall or multi-layer cylindrical wall, we have calculated the heat flow rate as well as the overall heat transfer coefficient based on the inner area as well as based on the outer area. Now our next theory is conduction through a sphere. So first of all we will focus on this figure. I hope now it is completely visible. Here in this sphere we are having, this is a hollow sphere in which we have inner radius as R1 and outer radius as R2. The inner temperature is T1 and outer temperature is T2. Heat is flowing only in the radial direction, that is Q. And for our analysis purpose, we have taken a small ring out of this sphere for analysis purpose. And this ring is at radius r from the center, and the thickness of this strip is dr. So we are focusing on this portion. Okay, so we will be focusing on this part. Consider a heat conduction through a hollow sphere of inner radius r1 and outer radius r2, and it is made of a material of constant thermal conductivity. The inner and outer surfaces are maintained at a constant but different temperatures T1 and T2 respectively. The heat flow is limited to radial direction only due to geometric symmetry. And obviously here as the heat flow is shown from inner side to outer side, the temperature T1 at inner surface is greater than the temperature T2 at the outer surface. The heat flows radially outwards. Now, first of all, we will begin with the general heat conduction equation in spherical coordinates. We have proved this in our previous lectures. So, here there are few conditions that we are going to apply, or assumptions, that it is a steady state unidirectional heat flow in radial direction with no internal heat generation. So, the above equation will get simplified. So here, as it is having a steady state, we will apply these conditions one by one. If it is a steady state, then this del T over del tau will not be present. Then a unidirectional heat flow in radial direction. Because of that, these two directions will not be considered. This will not be considered, as well as this will not be considered, with no internal heat generation, so this will also get cancelled. So we are only left with this term with nothing on the right hand side. So the above equation gets simplified to this, that is 1 upon r square del over del r into the bracket r square del t over del theta. I think there is a problem here. Let me make this correction. So here it has to be R. So now here 1 upon r square goes because it multiplies with 0. Then here we are going to integrate this term, and once we integrate this term we will obtain a constant c1 on the right hand side. And here for further integrating this formula we will be getting this. So how it is arrived? So let us say we do it here, del t dt over dr is equal to c1 raised to r minus 2. So t is equal to c1 into r minus 2 plus 1 divided by minus 2 plus 1 plus c2. That's why here we are having minus c1 into r minus 1 plus c2, and that's why we are getting the answer as minus c1 divided by r plus c2, which is shown over here. So this is our temperature profile with two constant of integrations r1 and c1 and c2. Now incorporating the relevant boundary conditions, that is at r equal to r1 we are having t equal to t1, and at r equal to r2 we are getting t equal to t2. So here these are the boundary conditions, and by applying the boundary conditions we will be getting this formula. Now we will try to obtain these values. Let us say we apply these boundary conditions. T1 equal to minus C1 divided by R1 plus C2, and the second boundary conditions, once we apply this, then it is equal to minus C2 divided by, it has to be C1 divided by R2 plus C2, and we have applied both the boundary conditions here, and we will take a difference of these two. So C2 will get eliminated, so we are having now T1 minus T2 equal to minus C1 divided by R1 plus C1 divided by R2. So implies that what we will be getting out of this is T1 minus T2 is equal to C1 into the bracket minus 1 upon R1 plus 1 upon R2. So we will further simplify this here, then T1 minus T2 is equal to C1, so we are continuing here, C1 into the bracket R1 minus R2 divided by R1 R2. So the value of C1 that we are getting over here is C1 is equal to T1 minus T2 into R1 R2 divided by R1 minus R2. So we have obtained this value, and now what you should do is you should put this value of C1 into any of these two equations, and then with similar process you will be getting the value of C2 also. So in this way we have obtained the constant of integrations C1 and C2. When the values of two constants are put in the main equation, we will be getting this formula. And further simplifying this, so what we have done here, from this equation to this equation, we have simply divided numerator and denominator with R1 R2. So once you divide numerator with R1 R2, this will vanish, and once you divide R1 R2 in denominator, you will be getting 1 upon R2 here. I am talking about this. See, to repeat this part, let us focus on this portion. Suppose we multiply numerator and denominator with R1 we divide numerator and denominator with R1 R2, then this will vanish, and in the denominator we will be getting this. Similar thing is done over here also. So now here we can combine these two terms. So we will be getting T1 minus T2 here, and in the bracket we are having this, so this will be as it is. So we have taken these two together, and in the dimensionless form we can obtain in this way. Okay, it may look slightly complicated, but if you go by step, then it is quite easy to understand. Okay, so for this portion, let us say that what we have done, we have taken T1 over this side, so that's why it is T minus T1, and we have taken this T1 minus T2 on the denominator of left hand side, that's why it is over here, and this remaining terms, that is 1 upon R1 minus 1 upon R is here in the numerator, and this term 1 upon R2 minus 1 upon R1 is in the denominator. Now when you further simplify this ratio, you will be getting this value. Okay, so the temperature distribution associated with this is represented by a hyperbola because of this formula. The nature of the formula is hyperbolic, and the conduction heat transfer rate is determined by utilizing the temperature distribution in conjunction with Fourier's law. So we are not going to discuss how we have arrived up to this. This will be part of your self-study. So there are few things which I am giving you in self-study. First is calculating geometric mean area. Second is calculating geometric mean radius, which is similar to our theory of cylindrical walls, and equation of heat flow rate for spherical composites, and equation of heat flow rate for a spherical composite with consideration of inner and outer convection film coefficient. We have already done this for a plane wall and cylindrical wall, so you should be able to do this by yourself also. So now our next theory is effect of variable thermal conductivity. For most of the materials, the dependence of thermal conductivity on temperature is almost linear, which is given by this formula: K is equal to K0 1 into 1 plus beta T. This thing we have discussed in our introduction chapter, where K0 is the thermal conductivity at 0 degree centigrade temperature, and beta is constant whose value depends on the material. The value of beta is usually positive for non-metals and insulations and negative for metallic conductors. So now, with variable thermal conductivity that is based on this equation, the Fourier's law for heat conduction through a plane wall can be rewritten as this. So here, if you recall, our standard Fourier's equation was Q is equal to minus K A dt by dx. So here, instead of K, we have written K0 into 1 plus beta T. And here, separating the variables and integrating within the limits of t is equal to t1 at x equal to 0 and t is equal to t2 for x equal to delta. So this is our previously we were having such kind of wall in which the thickness was delta, the temperature here was T1 and the temperature here is T2. So this is called as x equal to 0 condition and this is called as x equal to delta condition. So here what we have done, we can still modify this equation here, that it is q into dx is equal to minus k0 into 1 plus beta t into a into dt. So now we are going to integrate this formula on both sides. So on the left hand side the integration limits will be 0 to delta, as this is for dx, that is from 0 to delta over here, and on the right hand side we are having integration limits as t1 to t2. Now after integrating this term we will be getting a formula like this, because the integration of 1 plus beta t into the bracket dt will be equal to, for integration of 1 it will be t, and beta is already a constant and the integration of t is t raised to 1 plus 1 divided by 1 plus 1. So here it will be t square by 2, that's why we are getting this t2 plus beta by 2 into t2 square, and here the first is upper limit minus lower limit for integration. And when we further simplify this we will be getting this. So it may look slightly complicated, so we will try to solve this portion one by one. So here, opening the brackets, we will be getting t2 plus beta by 2 t2 square minus t1 minus beta by 2 t1 square, which is equal to t2 minus t1 plus beta by 2 T2 square minus T1 square is equal to T2 minus T1 plus beta by 2 into, for T2 square minus T1 square we can write down T2 minus T1 into T2 plus T1, which is equal to, here T2 minus T1 we can take common, T2 minus T1 into the bracket 1 plus beta by 2 into T2 plus T1. So the same thing is obtained over here also, as you can see. Okay, so you can pause this video and write down this simplification. Now I am rubbing this part. Okay, so heat flow rate is given by this formula, in which we have combined few terms together, that is K0 and this terms. So this all things together is written as Km and remaining terms are as it is, because Km is equal to this formula, where Km represents the mean thermal conductivity evaluated at the arithmetic mean temperature. Because why it is arithmetic mean temperature? Because here we are having T1 plus T2 divided by 2, that is arithmetic mean. So now we are going to discuss about this point, in which temperature profile with variable thermal conductivity. Fourier's law already we know, and here for steady state heat conduction in an infinite wall, the heat flux is always constant. Q upon A is always constant. So this parameter on right hand side, that is minus K dt by dx, or simply if we take K into dt by dx, must be constant. Okay, so the temperature variation is governed by a condition of that parameter K into dt by dx is always constant. So first we will discuss about case number 1, in which beta is equal to 0. So this is our equation of variable thermal conductivity. If beta is 0, then K is equal to K0, which is constant. In such case, dt by dx must be constant, because our objective is K into dt by dx must be constant. So as we have, this has to be constant. So if K is already constant, based on this, then the remaining term dt by dx is also constant. That's why we are getting this profile, a line, because it is, the slope is constant. Dt by dx is the slope of this graph, which is constant. Okay, that's why it is a line. Now our next condition is beta greater than 0. So suppose in this equation K is equal to K0 1 plus beta T, beta is greater than 0, then as temperature increases, K will also increase. Temperature increases, so K will also increase, so K is proportional to T. So here K increases with increase in temperature and vice versa. So here if you see, the temperature is decreasing in this direction, because here we are having hot side and here it is cold side, so temperature is decreasing in x direction. So as K is proportional to T, if temperature is decreasing, K should also decrease, that is thermal conductivity must also decrease. Now again our objective is this, that is K into dt by dx has to be constant. So as k is decreasing, dt by dx must increase, because let us say that we are having two terms together, a into b equal to constant. Then if one term is decreasing, then the other term must increase, so that the overall multiplication remains constant. So the term dt by dx in such case must increase. That's why we are having such kind of curve. Okay, now the last case is beta is less than 0, in which we are getting this kind of formula. So if temperature increases, k decreases, and if temperature decreases, then k increases because of this negative sign. So we can say that k is inversely proportional to the temperature. In such case, here as the temperature is decreasing in x direction, as we have already discussed, then the thermal conductivity will increase because of this relationship. That's why k is increasing. So if k is increasing, then dt by dx must decrease to remain this multiplication as constant. So one term here is increasing, so the other term must decrease. That's why we are getting this curve for beta to be negative. So this is variable thermal conductivity. Now our next theory is critical thickness of insulation. So here let us focus on this diagram first. Here this is the inner radius Ri, and here we are not fixing the outer radius as Ro, we are keeping it variable. The inner temperature is Ti and outer temperature is To. The radial thickness is R minus Ri. The inside film coefficient is Hi and outer film coefficient is Ho. And this is nothing but insulation. So here this whole portion is nothing but insulation. Okay, and we will vary the thickness of this insulation. Here this is the metal portion that is inside, which is of negligible thickness. And here, as you can see in this diagram also, that first of all there is an inside film, because of this which we are getting this resistance. Then there is an insulation part, which is a cylindrical layer, for which this is the resistance, and then we are having outer film H0, for which this is the convective resistance. Now generally it is believed that the addition of insulating material on a surface always brings a decrease in heat transfer rate. Generally we understand that insulation reduces the heat transfer rate. However, there are cases when the addition of insulation to outer surfaces of cylinder or a sphere does not reduce the heat loss. In fact, under certain circumstances, it will actually increase the heat flow up to certain thickness of insulation. So we are going to study the case in which insulation actually increases the heat transfer rate. So here consider a thin walled metallic cylinder of length L, radius Ri, and transporting a fluid at a temperature Ti, that is inside temperature which is greater than the ambient temperature T0. Surrounding this cylinder is an annular section of insulation of thickness R minus Ri and thermal conductivity K. So here you can see this portion, this thickness is R minus Ri. So now, with assumptions of steady state heat conduction, one dimensional flow only in radial direction, and negligible resistance due to cylindrical wall with no radiation present, the heat flow can be written in this way. So if you see, Ti minus To is as it is. The first resistance is due to the inside film, second is due to the second resistance is conduction resistance due to the insulation, and third resistance is the convective resistance due to the outer film, where Hi and Ho are film coefficients at inner and outer surface respectively. Now you need to focus here that the denominator represents the sum of thermal resistance to the heat flow. The values of K, Ri, Hi, Ho are constant. Therefore, the thermal resistance depends only on the insulation, which specifies the outer radius in the arrangement. So here, if you see, if you focus on this formula, then R, small r is present at two locations, in this first term, in this middle term, and here in this last term. Here R is in the numerator and here R is in the denominator. So at some instances, this R will increase this term and this will decrease this term. So when R increases, the second term increases and the third term decreases. So we are not sure that what will be the overall effect of R on Q. So to understand this effect, the effect of the insulation thickness effect can be studied by differentiation of total resistance RT with respect to R and setting the derivative equal to 0. So what we are going to do, we are going to differentiate this and then equating it to 0. So the differentiation gives us this. To explain this part, let us say that we are differentiating the middle term first. d upon dr of 1 divided by 2 pi k l ln r upon ri. So we are going to differentiate this first. Then constant term will come out, 2 pi kl, and the differentiation of ln will be 1 upon r divided by ri multiplied by d upon dr of r upon ri. This is based on the simple mathematics. So here this is 1 upon 2 pi kl into ri upon r multiplied by this differentiation will give us 1 upon ri, because the differentiation of r is 1. So this ri will get cancelled out and we will be getting 1 upon (1 upon 2 pi r k l), and it is visible over here also. And for the third term of differentiation, here it is actually differentiation of 1 upon r only. That's why it is minus 1 upon r square, and the remaining terms are as it is in this equation. The first term is independent of r, so this will not come. Okay. So here then we are equating it to 0. So finally simplification of this formula gives us the value of r to be equal to k upon ho. And to determine whether the above relation maximize or minimize the total resistance, we need to calculate the second derivative. So here, see, this is our first derivative. This is our first derivative, dRt upon dr. So we need to differentiate this again. So the differentiation of this will be this. So here this is the second derivative, and in this second derivative we need to put the value of r as k upon h0. So at r is equal to k upon h0, the value of d2 by d2 rt upon dr square will be this. I will suggest you to do this by yourself. Okay, it is simple mathematics, you can do it by yourself. And if you focus on the right hand side, h0 is positive, 2 pi is positive, k is positive, and l is positive. So the entire bracket, this entire term will be positive. That means the value of thermal resistance will be minimum at r is equal to k upon h0. So this is the condition for minimum resistance and maximum heat flow rate. So here the insulation radius at which the resistance to heat flow is minimum is called as critical radius, and the critical radius is designated with RC, and it depends only on the quantities K and HO. Thus R is equal to RC, K divided by HO. So we are ending this lecture here, and we will continue this topic in our next lecture. Thank you for watching this video.